Well, good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. The DMR Waves carried a report on statements made by Chairman of the U.S. Congressional Subcommittee on the Western Hemisphere, Mr. Series, and Democratic Congressman Hank Johnson, where they both called on all Guyanese benefiting from oil money. And I want to say on behalf of the government that we have been saying this all the time. In fact, the manifesto of the People's Progressive Party Civic during the election campaign and in the programs we've brought out since is focusing on making sure that Guyanese benefit not only from the oil money, but from the development of our nation, the modernization and expansion of our economic base. And so all our programs show that. In fact, if one looks at since we've come into government in terms of COVID relief to every household across Guyana, in relation to increasing the cash care program for children, every child registered in school, the increase in the school uniforms for children across Guyana, including the COVID relief to the Amerindian villages of $1.5 billion that we have been moving in to ensure that all Guyanese are benefiting from the wealth of our country prior to oil, during oil, and after oil. Article 13 of our nation of the Constitution talks about parliamentary democracy and participatory democracy, and we believe in that. And so everything we've done, including poverty reduction programs, the opening up of the housing programs, the creation of water systems where they weren't there before, solar panels in interior areas, and development of the Amerindian areas in particular, as well as other villages that were neglected under the APNU+AFC government, are all in train, and we've been moving at a rapid pace. In fact, the party that is guilty of discrimination, which keeps hollering about discrimination, is in fact the party that was in government for 5 years, that refused to obey the ruling of the courts of not only Guyana, but the apex court, the Caribbean Court of Justice, in relation to holding elections after the no confidence motion of December the 18th, 2021. It is the same party that punished Guyana for 5 months to wait for the declaration of the results of the elections in the midst of a COVID pandemic. And so the party that is responsible for holding us back is now the party that is saying that they don't recognize the government as being legitimate. They use phrases as installed, and therefore who installed us? The people of Guyana installed us by their vote, which was delayed for 5 months by the APNU+AFC government and the GCOM and officials in the GCOM who are now charged in the courts. It is the APNU+AFC that has discriminated in the 5 years. They terminated 1,972 Amerindian community service officers. They terminated 7,000 sugar workers. 30,000 people lost their jobs in that period, including other public servants, approximately over 2,000 who lost their jobs because either the color of their skin was wrong or the color of their politics was wrong. And therefore, we have witnessed this in the 5 years. And we are not going to allow that to happen again in our country. So that we have no issue with the calls by the two gentlemen in relation to all Guyanese benefiting. We are committed to the Sustainable Development Goals. We're committed to Article 13 of our Constitution. We're committed to constitutional rule of law and participatory democracy. But it cannot be the rule of those who refuse to accept democracy and those who do not accept the will of the people of our country who elected the People's Progressive Party Civic. We won't be bullied. We were bullied for over 5 years. And therefore, we look forward to the APNU+AFC taking a mature political position of recognizing the PPPC as the legitimate government of our country. And then the opportunities for dialogue on a number of issues become opened. And so we wish to assure our friends in the United States that we are committed, and the proof is in our manifesto. It is a proof in the role in which we played in those 5 months while we were waiting for election results and going through the recount. The proof is in the performance of the government since it came in on August the 2nd, in the midst of a COVID pandemic, where the government had badly and woefully prepared for the pandemic, in which there were shortages of basic supplies to treat people who were being infected, and not even one mask was distributed by the government. We have reversed all of that in a matter of 10 months. We are not here to discriminate against anybody, but we're here to represent people who need. And so the point the opposition is carried is that some people aren't getting flood relief that they should be getting. We have had assessment with the SEDEMA, with certain UN organizations, with civil society, going region by region to assess the state of the damage and people in need. We've given out thousands and thousands of hampers, hygiene kits, and cleaning materials. And so no one has been left behind. Persons who may not have gotten are those who were not flooded. And so it is not a situation where everyone could get, but there are people who suffered tremendously, and they are only now in certain areas after a month, water is going down after livestock and people's homes were damaged. And so we are pleased that our friends in the United States are monitoring Guyana and watching out for our interest. And we wish to assure them that we will continue as a democratically elected government to stand by our constitution and the protection of rights, the rights of all Guyanese, regardless of who they voted for and for what ethnic group they belong to, what gender they are, and what part of Guyana they come from and what race. So thank you very much. Good night.